Welcome to the weekly report. It's May 20th and I'm Robert Barwick. I'm joined today for a special weekly report by two of the CEC state secretaries, Jan Picullis from Queensland. Welcome, Jan.
Hi, Robbie.
And Anne Lawler from New South Wales. Welcome, Anne.
Hi, Robbie.
Now, the reason Jan and Anne are joining us is because this week's weekly report is a strategic expose of the British agents who have taken over the carbon tax protest movement. And they've taken it over for the purpose of rendering it impotent and useless so that it is ineffective and does not challenge the source of policies like the carbon tax, which is, as we've said, the British Crown itself. Now, the British Crown goes to enormous lengths to keep its subjects loyal. The problem is the CEC has been going to these carbon tax rallies for the purpose of opposing the carbon tax, and our presence has smoked out the agents who are associated with the British Crown's economic warfare unit, known as the Mont Pelerin Society. And those people associated with the Mont Pelerin Society have turned on us and turned their carbon tax protests into an attack on the CEC and our expose of the Crown. Anne and Jan have just survived a dramatic, intense carbon tax protest rally at Port Macquarie last weekend. They were turned on by a mob at the protest. Now we're going to discuss in depth the rationale behind the organisers who are making these decisions to turn on us. But first, what I want the viewers to understand is what actually happened at this event. So I'm going to throw over to Jan and Anne to report on the events of the day, because it was pretty dramatic. Starting with you, Anne, but Jan, chip in as well. Please brief the viewers on the Port Macquarie protest and what unfolded.
Okay, well, to start off, to prepare, we knew we were going in there with a message because we understand that this whole rally is a farce. We've understood that from the start, that this is just a coalition set up, right, to have a change of government, but not to have a change of green fascist agenda, which is being run by the Crown. So what we did to start off with is we actually covered an A-frame on the back of a utility with pictures of our Queen posters of I Want to Carbon Tax You, with a whole gallery of cartoons relating to the Royals wanting to shut down the Murray-Darling, to the whole peer review idea of scientists. And so we arrived at the rally and we had our vehicle, and we weren't really intending to be right in their faces. We were going to park nearby, but when there wasn't a car park nearby, we decided, well, what the heck, we'll park on the grass right there where the rally's going to take place. So we pulled in and backed our vehicle up alongside where they were setting up the stage. And that stage, mind you, was a Tautliner truck of the Christian Democrats and, Vote 1 Peter Madden. Now, he was also the compere of the event. And as we...
So that's an example of they're trying to use these rallies to garner votes for their own right-wing candidates.
Yes, exactly, that's right. And so, as bold as brass, we jumped out, we, introduced ourselves, we set up, we're here, because, legitimately, the CEC is the only political party that's ever opposed the carbon tax. And so anyhow, we started to set up, and you could feel it was like a storm building, wasn't it, Jan? You could see this, running around the people that were part of the organisers, that are actually on their mobile phones, calling somebody else, the CEC's here.
Okay, they were calling back to higher authority to get advice on what to do.
I think they were calling to these CATER mob, the Consumers and Taxpayers Association, that was still on the way, because they were legitimately the people that actually organised the rally. And when they arrived, they come in and they pulled up right beside the ute so that they could our ute, so they could try and block out some of that, the signage that we had.
One of the organisers of the event actually welcomed us there, acknowledged that we were there and was pleased that we were there.
Yeah, to add, because I mean they're looking, this is a public rally, they're trying to oppose this tax by showing force in terms of numbers against it. And, you know, she understood.
People we know who are genuinely opposed to the tax are happy to see us at these events.
Of course they are, because they know we're against the carbon tax.
But others are betraying themselves because they're not happy to see us there.
Exactly.
And it's usually the ones that are there first are usually from other political parties. So when we rocked up and they said, the CEC are here, it was more like in a panic, and they were calling for arms. Reinforcements
yeah.
at least.
And right from the get-go, we had the intimidation. You know, this guy from the Democratic Labor Party on his back, and he's got this whippet dog with, and he's trying to tell us, you know, you can't be here. And they're right at the start, you've got to have a permit. You can't be here. We've got a permit to be here. And I said, you know, well, we're part of the rally. What's wrong? We're here to support the rally. Why can't we be here? And so anyhow, we stood our ground and we handed out our material. And as you've got these people, you know, different ones circling around, actually throwing in their chips at us. You know, people don't like what you're handing out, and you can't, you know, and they're offended by your signs. And
Now, are they specific about what they don't like?
The Queen.
They don't like the Queen, or they don't like what we say about the Queen.
They're asking what's the Queen got to do with it, but they're not. They don't want to involve themselves in a discussion. They're just offended, and they want us to take our signs down. And yet, you know, we can back up what we're saying about.
Well, at this rally, you had our new 4-page dossier on the Queen's role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that answered their questions if they really wanted to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so how bad did all this get? Paint the picture for us.
Well, it got pretty bad to start off with. We removed the ute on the request of the police, because they got to the state. First of all, they were using the excuse that we didn't have a permit to be there. Right, we're riding on their coattails. So then, on the request of the police, yes, we removed the vehicle, and the police were quite happy for us to stay there as part of the protest with our tables. And so we did that, and we're organising and handing out our literature.
Yeah, we had two tables about 6 foot apart, and they each had signs. So we were all set up within moments, and they were still setting up. And so this was like an hour before, 2 hours. Was it 2 hours before the rally was actually start? We were there. Mm. We started setting up, and that Peter Madden came down with his microphone and gathered a crowd around directly in front of our display, and he started mouthing off how the CEC's got no right to be there. And I can't actually remember exactly what he said, but they brought their people over with signs so that they were blocking the visionary access of other rally attendees were blocked from actually accessing our organising. And it just went on from there. Then Michael Darby came and tried to do the same thing, and he got on his speaker as well. And there was people taking video footage of it. And when I tried to get video footage of him mouthing off, they were blocking me in all sorts of ways and saying that I was very rude and had no right to be here and stop pushing. And I wasn't pushing at all. And even though they were holding signs, they were they weren't actually trying to beat us up or didn't actually feel my life be threatened or anything, but they were pushing and kind of shoving and letting their signage fall on me or deliberately fall on me, and so that I couldn't get kind of any proof of what he was saying. But at the same time, there was a lot of there was people, more than just one. There was a few ringleaders, but they were
but they
pushing.
They circled us, didn't they? And they were coming from at all different angles of objection to what we're doing. But the most striking
first
thing
of
was
all,
these
verbally.
women, remember?
Yeah. First of all, verbally, asking questions, but in a way that was. They were very offended at Menzies kissing the backside of the Queen. And
so they should be. That's why we did that cartoon.
Yeah.
Well, you have to remember a lot of these ladies grew up on Women's Weekly, you know, so we were actually, you know, putting their beloved Queen and then their beloved, Prime Minister, Menzies, right there in full view to show the hypocrisy of who and what they are. So, mind you, Menzies was followed by all the other Prime Ministers that were all lined up, and Gillard waiting to get in line.
Yeah.
And if the truth's known, you should have Tony Abbott and Barnaby Joyce trying to push her out of the way, because they're just waiting to get in line too. Yeah.
Maybe it's lucky we didn't have it this time. You might not have got out alive.
Well, we can't make the poster too big. You include nearly all of them.
Now, did they...
But see, the interesting thing to note too is that they actually, the Warren Truss and Barnaby Joyce, who were the, touted as being the guest speakers, National Party, and this was all, against Rob Oakeshott as the local independent. They distanced themselves. They were completely out of the picture. It's like they had all of their attack dogs that were actually there, because they knew we were going to be there. We've been at all of these rallies.
Did you get the sense that the reaction you got was just an instant reaction on the day, or were they prepared?
No, they were definitely prepared.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't...
Because we've been a presence at a lot of these carbon tax rallies. In fact, probably all of them.
Well, don't forget, Jan, what was that comment the man said at the end?
He said, this is a guy that I recognised at the Brisbane rally. He said to me at the end, how did you like the way we controlled you this time?
Yeah. We trained our people.
Yeah, we're well trained, aren't we? We trained them well. And he was bragging that. Because it couldn't have not been trained, because there were so many, I mainly noticed the women, but there were so many of them that it doesn't matter where we walked, we were abused and threatened. And well, at one stage, well, I'll get to it later, but what was building, there was a sense that, okay, we need our supporters. Where are they? So they soon enough turned up, and as they did, luckily at the time we did have those supporters turn up when they did, because someone knocked all of our literature off the table, and then the literature's gone off the other table. Someone picked up a felt pen and well, they must have already had it, and because it wasn't ours, and they scribbled all over our signs. The signs got ripped off the tables were overturned, and it seemed to go on for quite a while, and there was pushing and shoving.
It's like you don't know where to grab first.
We're trying to defend our stuff, but we were taken off guard, because we really weren't expecting the violence, and they didn't want it given back either, because I think they were highly offended if we try to defend ourselves.
Yeah, but I think they were trying to provoke us into doing something.
Yeah, definitely.
But we didn't.
Yeah.
All right, well, to be clear, just for the viewers' benefit, remember, we are there, right, to oppose the carbon tax. That's why we're going to these rallies, to oppose the carbon tax. And as we've discussed, the genuine people who are also there to oppose the carbon tax are welcoming of our presence. So when you have a reaction like this...
And see, the thing, sorry Robbie, the thing for the viewers to know that this wasn't the general rally that was against us. This was only these handful of people that were organised by the organisers.
Very important.
Yeah.
Actually, it was more than a handful, because I felt those hands. I reckon it was at least a dozen. And a bit later...
hands on you.
Yep. A bit later I went on my own. When Barnaby Joyce came on the stage, I thought, I'll get in his face with the Queen, because I know he's got the Queen's picture prominently displayed in his office, in his foyer. So I went towards the front of the crowd, and it wasn't hard to get there. By this time there was, I thought, at least 1,000 people, but it was easy to get to the front. They weren't packed in. And anyway, so I hold my banner up with both hands, so obviously I'm vulnerable here, right? But I wasn't thinking about that. I was only thinking of displaying the sign. And then there must have been a half a dozen people with other signs that tried to cover, the view, the access from Barnaby Joyce to seeing the sign. And they were saying, "Excuse me, you're so rude, stop doing that." And I wasn't doing anything, just holding my sign. And I got a push in the face with someone's hand, like deliberate, elbowed, jabbed, and I thought, geez, I couldn't believe it. And my pen dropped out of my ear, and I thought, well, there it is, but I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go down.
I'm not going down.
It's
I
not
might come
worth
up.
it. Yeah. So anyway, I persisted for a while, and then you think, well, they're doing a good job of blocking. So
Yeah. And
So-
actually, the police had suggested that I go and get my
Yeah,
friend
yeah.
out of there.
My goodness.
So yeah, so
Maybe they were trying to protect Barnaby from being turned into stone if the Queen looked at him.
Actually, something else of note is one of our elderly supporters that was there at the rally. When I spoke to her afterwards, it was interesting that she, from a distance, could actually identify at least two of these men that were provoking the other people to actually
Oh, really?
against us. Yeah.
So a fair amount of effort went into whipping this up.
yeah, one of these Christian Democrats guy, he was saying, yelling out, "Nazis go home! Nazis go home!" trying to incite a chant. And at that stage, there was hundreds of people at the rally already, and he's trying to incite this among the greater part of the rally, which was totally wrong, and the police stopped him from doing that. All he had to do is the police, gestured and told him to shut up, or hey, or something.
But to their surprise, it actually worked against them, because we had so many people that came and talked to us and wanted to know, because it was a real paradox, because the literature that we were handing out was actually, deliberately telling people where this carbon tax is coming from and why, and the role of the Crown.
Which is what people want to know.
Which is what they want to know. I mean, the people are there because they're against the carbon tax, not because they want to be used by political opportunists.
And unlike, we're not there to get votes for the CEC. We're there to stop the carbon tax by exposing who's behind it, which is the only way we'll be able to stop it. And we're getting a reaction from people. And when you get that kind of reaction, you've got to see, okay, there's a vested interest here.
Well, I know what the vested interest is, because we forced them to show their dirty Union Jack underwear at both the Brisbane rally and the Port Macquarie rally, because at the Brisbane rally they started singing "God Save the Queen," right? Yeah, and one of the
And they're
speakers
not
actually
very good.
well, at Brisbane they
So
were
it would have
like,
sounded like at the royal wedding, that rendition of God Save the Queen. That was pretty bad too.
no, at the Brisbane rally they were young and they didn't know how to sing it, so they were chanting it. But at the Port Macquarie rally they were all, old, and
they'd been
therefore
drilled
they
in it.
did know
Well, that's
Yeah.
what
very
Women's
well.
Weekly said.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just leave that for a minute. What I want to do is, for the viewers' sake, this is something that we've been conscious of for a while. We're going to look at the connections between the people who are prominent in organising these carbon tax rallies and the British Crown. And the key is this outfit called the Mont Pelerin Society. Now, the Mont Pelerin Society, as I said before, is the economic warfare unit of the British Crown. It was founded in 1947. It was a bunch of rehabilitated Nazis, the people who supported Hitler's rise to power in Germany, like Otto von Habsburg and Max von Turner Taxis, and British bankers and Austrian economists got together in Switzerland and formed this group. The money for it, here's the key bit, the money for it was organised by Harley Drayton, the man who personally managed the Queen's finances. Now, Harley Drayton is one of these very important backroom people who is so key that he didn't get knighted, because to knight him would have been to draw attention to his activities. But that was the British Crown made sure that unit was put together. All the policies of privatisation, deregulation from the last 40 years of the globalisation era have been driven by this Mont Pelerin Society. Now, the CEC has been exposed in this outfit since the Kennett era in Victoria in the early 1990s. And what we've noticed is that there's a big section of the population that you'd call them climate skeptics. They're not swallowing the climate change rubbish, but the groups that are organising themselves to sort of take advantage of that are in one way or another connected to the Mont Pelerin Society. For example, the Climate Skeptics Party is associated with the Institute of Public Affairs, which is a front for one of the 4 Australian fronts of the Mont Pelerin Society. The Lavoisier Group of Climate Skeptics is a front for the Mont Pelerin Society through the Institute of Public Affairs. If you look up the Climate Coalition, which is one of the bigger umbrella groups of climate skeptics, included in that coalition is a whole bunch of these Mont Pelerin front organisations. Now you got in these particular carbon tax rallies, the most prominent organisation is an organisation that doesn't explain very much about who they are or where they come from. They try and claim they're totally independent. They call themselves the Consumers and Taxpayers Association. But what this is a classic, if they're not part of the Mont Pelerin Society, they are entirely influenced by the Mont Pelerin Society's free market ideas, because that's what the Consumer and Taxpayers Association is all about. It's not about defining people as citizens of a nation, it's where consumers or taxpayers in an economy and define our rights in that way, in a Bernard de Mandeville fable of the bees kind of way, you know, the pursuit of pleasure, the avoidance of pain, etc., which is in the name, consumers, pleasure, taxpayers' pain. They're the kind of organisation that lumps opposing the carbon tax in with opposing the mining tax. Well, the carbon tax is out to kill us. The mining tax might make billionaires pay a bit more money, right? They're not the same issue, but they tend to sort of oppose them equally because they're definitely part of that milieu that the Mont Pelerin Society have generated. As for other groups prominent in these carbon tax rallies, such as the Conservative Action Network, if you look at their website called Can Do, you'll see close connections to the Australian monarchists and people like Sir David Flint. So it's little wonder that they erupted at our signs. And then finally, very prominent is you have major media outlets such as 2GB Radio. And you also have, as Anne has said, the coalition itself has been present at every single one of these rallies. They are the featured speakers: Tony Abbott, Barnaby Joyce, Erica Betts, Warren Truss. So what is the agenda that they are pushing? Well, that's quite obvious on the surface. They want to harness votes from this backlash for the coalition, right? Turn it into a re-election of the coalition. And as you've said, Anne and Jen, you've seen that. You've attended so many of these rallies. That's been quite obvious, the vote pitch for the coalition. Yeah,
all you have to do is, we'll vote for us, get rid of the Gillard government, we'll rescind the tax if it's been brought in, or we won't go with the tax.
Well, on that, you see the protesters, do any of these protesters question why it was that these same MPs, Tony Abbott, Barnaby Joyce, etc., all supported an emissions trading scheme when they were in the Howard government and it was a Howard government proposal? Do people question that among these?
Well, there's never any questions at these protests. It's all just one direction. Yeah.
Well, that's a key point, though, isn't it? Because you see that by the agenda is obvious. In order, to re-elect the coalition, what are they doing? They're making sure that the Australian population keeps swinging between Labor, coalition, Labor, coalition, Labor, coalition, and nothing ever gets changed. And so, for example, the way things are going, if the carbon tax if Gillard's still in government this time next year, and the carbon tax is passed and implemented by July 1st, 2012, when the next federal election comes around, and she is tossed out as she will be, and if Tony Abbott becomes the Prime Minister, he's saying he will repeal it, but will he repeal it? How do you know? They supported one themselves, right?
Well, how can they? It begs belief to think that they will repeal it, because you have to look at why they're imposing a carbon tax or an emissions trading scheme, right, which is probably more the agenda, because then that's controlled by the free market rather than actually being controlled by government.
Well, and this carbon tax is just a step towards an emissions trading scheme, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. So that's on the surface. It's obvious that they want to just get votes for the coalition here and just keep the voters swinging.
And they want to keep the whole animosity of the crowd focused purely on Julia Gillard. Yep. and the ALP and Bob Brown and that sort of thing. Don't go any deeper than that. Right?
And the swinging, they do a lot of that. If you look at the front of the crowd, because they turn up the music and it's a feel-good, I'm here in solidarity or whatever, but it's just an amusing, sensual time for them, for most of them.
But of course we do take it deeper, and so you've got to take, when you're analysing something like this, you do have to take it deeper, and there is a deeper issue. getting the coalition back in power as a means to an end. Because what does it do? If our message at these carbon tax rallies is heeded, what does it mean for the Crown, the power of the Crown, which sits atop the British monetary empire, if the people of Australia on this issue turn against it, right? These protests are happening in a context which you've got a global mass strike underway, right? Wherever this mass strike has erupted around the world, the target has been the British monetary system, whether it's the cause of the shortage of food in Egypt, or the cause of the people dictating the bank bailout in Ireland, etc. That's what the people are reacting to, and if the people are going to react to the cause of what they hate here in Australia, they would also take on the Crown, which is what we're exposing. So of course, that has much bigger implications for them than even just trying to keep the coalition elected. So in the time we've got left, I just wanted your observations. You've been at all these rallies. What is the response you're getting from the ordinary people, the everyday people who are there to genuinely protest, to what we say about the Crown, the Queen herself, or the Crown, the role of the Crown itself? What are the people saying about it when they learn about that?
Well, there's an increased interest in what we're doing, that's for sure, from one rally to another. Yeah, they do want to, they are inquisitive. We got more abuse verbally from just about every speaker at the Brisbane rally, and yet when we went around the crowd afterwards and handed out our new citizen, which was titled Carbon Trading is Hitler-Style Genocide, because we'd already given the flyer before on the Crown, 50% of the people still took it. So despite the animosity shown or spoken about us, there's still interest. And we got plenty of contacts at the next one at the Port Macquarie.
You smiled a bit. What were you going to say?
I'm not sure at the time. But basically, what I was just going to say is that when you take away the dyed-in-the-wool believers in the monarchy and the coalition, and you get the genuine people that are there, they're there because their cost of living's going up, and they know that this is going to hurt them. It's another. They see it, I think, as the final nail in the coffin. Basically, they're recognising that this is, already the productive economy has been attacked under the Queen's globalised, policies of free trade, deregulation. And now this is going to shut down whatever productive industry there's left in the name of the environment. So I think, what we're getting, and it started off at the first rallies we went to, it's like, well, what's the Queen got to do with anything? Well, now you don't get that so much at all. And actually these people that are trying to hide the Queen from the issue
suppress it.
Are actually making it the
it
issue.
more prominent. That's true. That's true.
So
Definitely.
Well, it's that natural inquisitiveness of people who are genuine that is what's going to make these people with an agenda a bit stir crazy, because they know they've got their work cut out for them. All right. Well, listen, we better leave it at that. We've run out of time. So this has been a special edition of the Weekly Report. Thank you again, Jan and Anne, for joining us. Coming to dear old Melbourne, cold old Melbourne, from your wonderful paradises of Queensland and New South Wales. But it's for a good cause. So that's it for this week's Weekly Report. Tune in again next week.